Good morning also. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for coming punctually, Maria Elena, Anisuraman, Yusta, Amisha Sewal. Thank you for coming so punctually. And thank you also to our facilitator for being the first one here, Mr. Albanos. So we are going to wait for 2 minutes for others to join so we can start. Welcome, Akelo Harriet. It's good to see you here. Albert Tioni, I can see you also. Welcome. Leah Mokwasa, Mala Upadaya. Thank you for coming so punctually. Richard Ochiti, it's good to see you here. So we're going to start in about 2 minutes while everyone joins. If you have any questions during the course of the webinar, please type them in the Q&A section, and I'm going to read them out for our facilitator. We're starting in 2 minutes. I can see people are still joining. Thank you all for coming so punctually. If you have any questions in between, please don't forget to type them in the Q&A section. All right. My name is Finuela Okunamiri, your regional coordinator for West Africa, and I will be your moderator for the session today. Today, the webinar is for the CBO NGO focus, and we'll be addressing needs assessment. Needs assessment, as we know, is very essential for a successful NGO CBO launch for a sustainability, community impact. And the beautiful part is that we have Mr. Albano Jitiru today, an expert in this area who will be shedding more light on this. So now I'm going to give a brief introduction about Mr. Albanos. Mr. Albanos is a seasoned development practitioner with over 15 years of experience in management and implementation of development programs in various fields, including education, health, youth empowerment, community media, economic empowerment, and gender programming. He's a community organizer in urban informal settlements and have mobilized and organized various communities to advocate for a number of causes. Mr. Jitiru has managed high-level donor-funded projects with international non-governmental organizations, including Cosmic Relief, United States Agency for International Development, UK Aid, and Ford Foundation, amongst others. He has qualifications in youth development work from Dar es Salaam University, a degree in sociology and psychology from the University of Nairobi, Masters of Arts in monitoring and evaluation of development programs from the University of Nairobi, and a master's degree in health promotion and international development from the prestigious University College London. He's currently the country director in America Share, Kenya, and Director Strategy for the Center for Empowerment and Integrated Development. This is no small feat at all. Please let us give a virtual round of applause to our facilitator today as he begins his session. Welcome, Mr. Albanos Jitiru. We are so happy to have you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fenuela. And I feel honored that I get an opportunity to share my thoughts with a group of scholars. And to me, I look to you guys as the next set of transformative leaders that will take our continent to another level and beyond. So thank you so much for the opportunity. And if we are all ready, then we'll move ahead to the topic that we are discussing today. So we are discussing needs assessment. So there we go. Our topic is on needs assessment. And before we start on needs assessment, I wanted us to understand the concept of gaps. So the gaps are either opportunities or problems. And through these opportunities or problems, they help in instigating action. That when we encounter a problem or an opportunity that is both on positive and negative side, then it propels us to take action. And at the beginning of any project, there are gaps between how the things are, the way the things are, and the way things ought to be. At this time, the project exists conceptually. We know where we are. We have an idea of where we would want to get to, but there is not much that we've done. So we say conceptually we have an understanding of the project, but this is before the project is planned and executed. So these gaps guide us on decision making because they define our goals. We identify the gap first, we identify where we would want to get to, and then we create an execution plan or an implementation strategy. And through this, that is where we are able to understand and say, these are our goals. So the gaps also help us to determine what results we would want to achieve by the actions we take. So it's more like a roadmap and a pathway that we start, we know where we would want to get to, but it takes us a bit of a time. There's a continuum in between here that we need to do a number of things. We'll get to talk more about that, but through these gaps, then we can easily equate and say in an analogous way, these gaps are the needs. So when we talk about the needs assessment, then it is more of an assessment to understand the gaps that we have, either in a positive way or in a negative way. So I would want us to take an example of housing need. I like sharing this through a story that one of the students in project planning was asked to address housing needs in the capital city of Kenya, that is in Nairobi. And this student was thinking on how best would I address this? Which angle would I approach as I'm doing this? And as he was walking just across the city, then he came across a group of, in Kenya we call them street boys or street families, people who do not have any place to sleep. They sleep by the streets, just within the corridors and the verandas in the main buildings of the city center. And for this student, he felt this is the need. We have so many people within the city who are homeless. They don't have a house, they don't have a decent place they can lay their head in. So for him, his understanding was the need of housing is building houses for the homeless people. But now I'm giving you a whole perspective on housing needs, that aside from persons without any housing, we have persons with substandard housing. You know, like people who live in slums, who are constrained in terms of space, in terms of, you know, how decent the kind of structure they're living in is. Again, this is equally a need in housing. Then we have our brothers and sisters who are living with handicap or physically disabled, that they would want to, they have a good house, but they can't access. Now, the issue of providing ramps, providing lift, you know, improving accessibility that also can be taken in as a housing need. Then we have those that are okay, they are living in 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom apartment, but to them it's more like, I would need a garden, I'll need a gym, I'll need ceilings that are with gypsum, well curated interior decor. Their desire is for more aesthetics. Now, again, this is also a need. So as we look at needs, there are various perspectives that we can look at. And as you're designing your projects, as you're designing your interventions, then you need to be very specific with what need you would want to address, or what need do you want to assess and understand. So in short, I'm saying what is needed is relative, and it depends on one's vantage point. Let's define needs assessment. A professor by the name Alison Rosette clearly defines needs assessment as a systematic study of a problem or innovation, incorporating data and opinions from varied sources in order to make effective decisions or recommendations about what should happen next. Now, I like this definition because it gives an all-round perspective, like a 360 run of needs assessment. One, that needs assessment is a systematic study, that we don't do it just anyhowly. You have to be guided by some procedure or guidelines. Now, that is what makes it a systematic study. What are we studying? Most of the time, we would want to look at things from both perspectives, both negative and positive. We are studying a problem that might be negative, but also an innovation or an opportunity. Then we incorporate the positivity part of it. So this systematic study of a problem or an innovation has to take a certain direction. And this direction is through incorporating data and opinions from varied sources. That in scientific terms, decision is made from an informed perspective, and we incorporate facts in the decisions that you're making. And this we can do through ensuring that we have enough data and we have opinions, and from multiple sources, that we don't share single perspectives, because then our needs assessment might be subjective. So once we've done incorporation of data from varied sources, then this helps us in making effective decisions and recommendations about what should happen next. So we know where we are, then we take a whole process of needs assessment to know where we would want to end at, the situation and the results. So simply put, needs assessment is a tool for making better decisions. Where do we make these better decisions? We are social beings. We are living in a world, a very social world. And by that, we are saying that when we encounter a problem that is a social problem, this means that this problem affects a large number of people. That's why we call it a social problem. That this existence of this problem creates hardship and suffering for those that are affected. And it also presents a cost to the society. For example, if we look at the pandemic of HIV and AIDS, then we know, looking at the African numbers, that we are so much affected by the pandemic. And this pandemic is creating hardships and suffering for very many people. And for many nations, when you look at their health budget, then you'll see that it presents a huge cost to society to ensure that we are able to mitigate, and at the same time, we are also able to take care of the sick. So this is where we say that the social problem presents a cost to the society. But again, the existence of social problems, not HIV only, we talk of housing, drug abuse, so many other things, they create a need for organizations that we call social service organizations, or the equivalent of the NGOs and the CBOs, and also the need for programs to address these problems. So as the NGOs try to address social problems, then we would want that addressing of social problems to be done in a systematic way, hence the need for needs assessment. How do we do this needs assessment? We conduct a needs assessment to gauge the extent or the severity of the problem. Yes, a problem is existing, but what is the extent? What is the magnitude of that problem? Once we've identified and we know the magnitude of the problem, then we identify interventions that are best suited to reduce or impact on the problem. Once we've identified the interventions, we go ahead and do the implementation, and later on, we evaluate the efforts to inform whether the intervention is making a difference. I'm using the word is making a difference because I'm looking at it in the short term. And finally, after some time, the need of the population is assessed again to determine the impact. So this whole cycle is what at times we term the project cycle. That you need to identify the need, you do an analysis of the need, you plan for your project, you implement the project, you evaluate so that you can be able to get the impact. And then the cycle continues. So it's more of a continuous cycle because every other time there is a problem that we need to understand. So having understood what needs assessment is and the project cycle and the importance of the CBOs and the NGOs and how they conduct the needs assessment, let's look at the benefits of this whole initiative. So one, we are saying that the needs assessment is a systematic process to guide decision making. The whole process and the whole reason as to why we conduct a needs assessment is that we want to make a decision. We want to make a decision on where we ought to be. So that is a systematic process. Two, it provides justification for decisions before they are made. So when you look at the needs assessment report, we'll get to that later in this presentation.
Hi, everybody. I think Alba just dropped, but he's rejoining right now. So
Yeah,
he should be. Okay.
Hi, everyone. Sorry for that. Was experiencing some power problems, and I'm just fixing that in due course. So in the meantime, I'll mute my video, and then we'll proceed. The moment we get the power fixed, then we can get back to normalization. Sorry about that. So I was sharing about the benefits of needs assessment. And I said the second benefit is that it provides justification for decisions before they are made. So you're able to provide the justification on the kind of decision that you're making because you've gone through the whole needs assessment and you have a reason for the decision that you want to make. The third benefit is in scalability of programs that most of the time you find introduction of new programs is done, but in a very small scale. And after assessment of that project, like a pilot project, then you're able to draw lessons from the pilot project to be able to expand your project or program. Now, scaling that program to something bigger and better, then the needs assessment becomes very crucial. The other bit is on replicability, that they provide a model for use by both novices and also by the experts. That you'll run a very successful project, probably in one part of the country, and through this success, then you would want to do the same in another part of the country. The replicability part works pretty well when areas that you're replicating the project shares almost the same kind of contextual analysis. But the other bit is on systematic perspectives for decision makers. In the fifth benefit, we are looking more on matters to do with policy decisions, policy making, strategic decisions for organization that needs assessment helps so much to give perspectives for these decision makers to be able to arrive at the decision that they would wish for. Then the other part is on interdisciplinary solutions to complex problems that mostly for organizations that are starting, they've not really found much of a niche, and they would want to run their programs according to the community or primary targets needs. And you find most of the CBOs, they will be running their programs in more of an integrated way. That there are so many small projects that are intertwined, they are speaking to each other, but they are being run as one whole program. So again, this is where needs assessment comes in handy because they'll give those interdisciplinary solutions. You know, matters of health, matters of education, matters of family reproductive health together into one very complex program, then you'll be able to run a needs assessment to be sure of the decisions that you make. How do we conduct a basic needs assessment? So you can see two diagrams there. I would want to start with a diagram that is to my right, which has a 5-step process. And while we are going through this, you can see that the first step is you do a situational analysis, that you're able to investigate and evaluate what is the current practice. The second bit is you do a gaps analysis. You identify the gaps between the current and the ideal practice. Then the third part is options analysis. You identify and select options that will fill those gaps. Then the fourth step is on implementation of the plan for the new provision of services. And the fifth final step is on monitoring and evaluation. Now, I would want us to look at this 5-step process against what we call the 3-phase model of needs assessment. That what I've just shared in 5 steps reflects the entire project cycle, but would want to narrow our concentration to the needs assessment bit. And in this model, we call it the 3-phase model. We have 3 areas. The first area is on exploring, which we call phase 1. Phase 2 is on gathering and analyzing data. And phase 3 is on making decisions. So let's start by exploring. When you do your exploring, you have to prepare a management plan, identify your major concerns, then you determine measurable indicators for that concern, then you consider where will I get data, which are my data sources. Then you decide on preliminary priorities. So this is more of exploring, understanding your need, and being very specific on what this need is. Then once you have all that, you know your data sources, you know the indicators you'll be looking out for, you know your priorities, then we go to the second phase, where is more of analysis. So you determine if it is a group, what is your target group? Who will I be sourcing this data from? Then you gather the data for the defined needs, then prioritize. After you've gathered the data, prioritize and say, what is it that I actually want to do? You remember when I shared about the housing need? So if you're doing housing, then you have all those 4 possible options to look at. Then prioritize on what you really would want to address. Then you identify and analyze the causes. What causes the need? Then you can be able to summarize your findings. When you come to make the decision, then you will now set your priority. If it is homeless, is it renting spaces for them? Is it building housing? Is it setting up cooperatives that can help them in saving towards better housing? So that is where you're looking at how do you set your priority needs. Then through that, you're able to identify the possible solutions, then select the solutions that fit well within your organization program, and then you propose an action plan. Once you have that, then you can be able to prepare your report as a summary of the needs assessment report. So we have started from exploring a wider perspective on a need, then we've narrowed down, then we've collected data on what we've narrowed down on, and then set priorities. From the data, we are able now to see more clearer on what would we want to venture in, what would we want to get our hands into. Then through that, then you look at now, from a narrowed down perspective, what are the possible solutions? You look at the possible solutions, then identify and select the solutions that speak to your program or to your organization. And in selection of the solution, it depends on so many things. You look at costs, you look at timelines, so many things that will help you in identifying what solution. Then from there, you do your action plan, and you can proceed into now doing your report. So let's get to the three-phase model and delve deeper into an understanding of these phases. Some development practitioners call phase one identifying the needs phase. So when you want to identify the needs, your first step is you have to identify internal and external partners. What do I mean by this? That we don't want a needs assessment that is coming from a single perspective. So multiple perspectives means it's not only you as a person, because rarely do we have a very good needs assessment done by one person. You have to involve a number of partners. And these partners will come both from within your organization, that's why we say internal, and also external partners, those that are from outside your organization, but are stakeholders in one way or the other. Then later, you determine what data is required for us to be able to identify our needs. After you've determined the data that is required, you go ahead and determine the potential sources of that data. This is what's required, and this is where I'll be able to get that. Sources can be from previous research, sources can be from experts. We'll talk more about the tools and the techniques later. So once you've identified your potential sources, then you make arrangements to collect information that is readily available. So you get all the information around the specific need, then you pilot test the information gathering tools. So when you're collecting the information that is readily available, we are looking at more of desktop research. Then once you're done with that, it helps you in gathering, pilot testing, what tools you'd use now to gather more information around that area. Then you collect that information using a variety of tools and techniques and ensure that you get varying perspectives. If you collect your data from a single perspective, then your report will be subjective and it might not be of a major help to you and to the organization at large. So then you define the needs on the basis of performance gaps, the gaps between the current and the desired results. So that in its entirety is our first phase in the three-phase model of data collection. Second, you do analyze. So it's of the second phase is more of analyzing the data. This links needs with the information required to make decisions about what action should be taken. So establish an initial prioritization of needs on basis of size, on basis of scope. Then conduct a needs analysis to better understand what is working and what is not. Then collect information on causal factors leading to the priority need, and then synthesize the information you have collected. So this is more of every opinion and data that you collected in the first step or in the first phase, you bring into the second phase to entirely deal with analysis. So you prioritize, you get your core area of interest, and then understand what are the causal factors that need leading to that priority need. Then synthesize all that information. At the end of phase 2, you should be able to have an understanding of the general perspective around the need, and then the specific area of need that you'd want to address, and you've synthesized all that information by the end of that phase. In phase 3 is now the decision-making phase. You have all the information, you have all the analysis, now is just to make the decision. So establish the criteria on decisions to be made. Again, as I said, it's all dependent. Impact, time, cost, for you to be able to say, I would want to run this part of addressing the need within 1 year. So for results that can be met within 1 year, that is the criteria that will drive you and inform your decision on what exactly you would want to do. 2, you might want to make these criteria according to the cost. I have a budget of $10,000. So I want to run an initiative that will cost $10,000. Then that will be a criteria for the decision that you make. 3 is about the impact. You would say, I am having a HIV prevalence of 13%, but I want, by the end of my intervention, I want the prevalence down to 10%. Now, that is impact driven. Then it's upon you to decide what criteria you want in terms of making this decision. Then once that's done, identify the solutions that in combination will achieve the desired results. And then evaluate each potential performance improvement activity, prioritize the identified needs on basis of cost to meet the need versus cost for not meeting the need. And then finally, summarize your recommendation in your needs assessment report and disseminate that information. So that is the whole model for the 3 phases. Who should be involved in needs assessment? I said this previously, that the needs assessments are rarely successful when they are performed as an individual activity. So you have to do it with others inside and outside your organization so that you can be able to gain multiple perspectives. Needs assessment with a single perspective can be dangerous. I've mentioned this several other times, that sometimes you'll be doing something in your home and you feel like everything is well arranged, everything is okay. But when you get an external person, then this external person can give a different perspective from what you're used to. There is a saying that says, familiarity breeds contempt. So you get too familiar and there are things that you might not be noticing. So the more reason why, then we have to get both inside and outside perspectives when we are doing our needs assessment. So when you're done with your needs assessment, you have to present your report. And I've given 2 scenarios One is where you're doing your assessment report and you need to present report as is. Probably most of the time this is done by consultants. And the other one is where you're giving your presentation, the outcome of the report in a presentation form. But all the same, the major areas to be concerned about is that your report should always have the executive summary. Then you do an introduction where you lay out your purpose, your goals, and your objectives. Then you come and address the needs, the methods for identifying the needs, the data in identifying the needs, and then the actions considered. Those are the solutions that we were talking about. Methods for identifying the alternatives. Then what data do you have on the alternatives? Then criteria for comparing those alternatives. Then you draw your conclusions and give your decisions or recommendations. And that's it. That's the end of your assessment report after you've given your recommendations. But since reports are done in a professional way, then you have to put on your annexes, well, your supporting data. You also need to annex the tools and the instruments that you used in collection of data, so that if someone else is doing the same around the same area, then he or she can be guided by the kind of report that you've done. On the flip side, if you're just doing a presentation, then it's just instead of the executive summary, then you're giving an agenda, then the introduction, the purpose, the objectives, then you put on your needs and actions, conclusions, decision making. But for the presentation, then we don't need to give an annex of supporting data or annex just on the tools and the instruments. So what tools and techniques do we use when we do a needs assessment? I said initially that you need to go back and check what data or what information do you have around the area of need that you've identified, and that is what we call documents review. Then you can go ahead and seek the views of the experts. So we have guided expert reviews. You can also be able to get your community into focus groups to be able to discuss the same issues around the area of need. You can also do interviews, and you can also do surveys. So we'll get to understand this in a deeper way, that for document or data review, the purpose of this is to review a variety of existing sources with the intention of collecting independently verifiable information. So you go look into books, previous research done, any information that you can get hold of regarding your area of need. The beauty of all this is that you're collecting information that is independently verifiable. So the advantages of document review is that the information is independently verifiable. It can be done without intensive input from other sources, and it is less expensive than collecting data on your own. The demerits is that it may represent a perspective that is not aligned to the needs assessment project. You remember when I said about housing? So you might get document review data that is speaking to the housing need in general, but you have a very particular niche that you'd want to address. So the disadvantage is that it may not represent that niche, so might not be aligned. Two, it is a time-consuming process because you have to do a lot. You have to delve and peruse through a lot of information for you to be able to get exactly what you want. Then the third disadvantage is that it cannot control the quality of the information being collected. So you get the information the way it is, but you can't control the quality. In the guided expert interviews, this is where you identify a person in the field that you're interested with, a person who has expertise in that field, and then you are able to run an interview to get his or her perspectives and also guidance on what you'd want to address as an organization. So again, the purpose is to gain informed perspective from a valued expert. Sometimes, I said, it allows a fresh set of eyes because you're able to get ideas and you're able to get new insights. And then one critical part on needs assessment is you're trying to run a course, and at times these courses require champions. You require a face that can identify with this course. So when you bring in an expert, then you increase credibility of the process because someone will say, oh, this guy has expertise in health and I can see his input in this needs assessment. So it makes it more credible. Then it allows benchmarking against similar systems because this is a person who has quite an expansive level of experience through so many areas around the need that you're trying to assess. So that expertise that he is bringing will be able to compare whatever you're doing against what is happening either globally or in other organizations. And when you do that comparison, that is what we call benchmarking. So you're able to benchmark with similar systems. Again, just like how we are doing this webinar, this is an interview that can be done remotely. So you can do it online, you can make a telephone call or such kind of thing, and that saves time and also saves resources because you don't need to get the expert to where you are exactly. Now, just like any other, this technique still has disadvantages, and we have a disadvantage of the challenge in criteria for the choice of your expert. How do you choose amongst so many people in that sector that this is the right person who is going to give me the information that I want or is going to give me the perspective that I want? So this is a major challenge because most of the time you might approach an expert without a clear criterion on what exactly you would want to take from. For example, if you have addressing a need like in HIV, then we have experts in antiretroviral therapy, and we also have experts in community care. So how do you choose who amongst these experts is the one that I would want to go to be able to get the information that I want? So it means you have to do your research, you have to do your analysis so that you ensure you get the right expert that can give you the right perspectives that you want. Now, that presents a challenge to most of the organizations. The other bit is on subjectivity, because, as I said, experts have vast experience. They've run a number of projects. They've been interviewed in different places. Now, there is a risk of subjectivity as the prior experience would affect the outcome of the process. So you get an expert who tells you, we just did this in Ghana. And so in real sense, what he's doing is just importing and transposing the experience of a previous project to your project. So you have to be very keen to ensure that there is objectivity and we are not imposing other project views through the expert that we've brought. Then it can be very expensive and it can be very difficult to find an expert. I don't know, I wouldn't want to share more about this because where you are already, you have this experience that sometimes you'd want to get a resource person and it will take you a very long time. You go approach, I have a very busy diary, I'm out the whole of this month. You know, that kind of challenge, that kind of difficulty, we've seen that a lot when it comes to getting the experts to come in and give their input into our project. Then the other technique is using focus group. So with focus group, the purpose is to collect information from a small group. Focus group ideally between 5 and 12 people, and you collect this information in a structured format. And the facilitator presents participants with questions that are designed to yield the insights into the results, current where we are and desired where we would want to go. Now, in the focus group discussions, the facilitator is key. So you have to ensure that the facilitator understands what the need is, and also can be able to guide the group so that questions that are asked can be able to yield the result that we want. So when you're doing focus group, then you need to invest a lot into the facilitator just to ensure that you're able to get value from the person who is running the focus group. If you miss on that, then again, you have a problem. So the advantage of the focus group is that you can be able to involve many people at the same time. So between 5 and 12 at the same time. And members in the group can build on each other's reactions and comments. And it helps people to come into consensus, because when you're doing a needs prioritization, then it becomes very easy to discuss amongst the people just to get what is the view that is carrying the day. The disadvantage is that not all group members will contribute equally. You might find some who are dominating the group. Then that's where the role of the facilitator comes in. Two, there is the risk of groupthink, that there are people who cannot give their independent thoughts when they are in a group, as long as several members in that group are of a contrary view, then these persons might feel intimidated. And you know, you might have a group of 5 and 4 people are pushing for a view, yet there is one person who has the solution, but since he feels intimidated or shy, then he might be forced to just go ahead with the group, go along with the group, and that is the risk of groupthink. Then discussions may take too long also. For you to be able to get perspectives from everyone, and at the same time also try to draw consensus, that might take a long time. Then focus group is not the best technique when you're discussing sensitive matters, because you might find people who are not comfortable sharing sensitive matters in a group setup. So you'll be keen on that. Then the other very common technique and tool is by use of interviews. That we use interviews to collect information from a single person through a format. The format can be either structured questions, semi-structured, or unstructured. Then you just run an interview with that one person and you get the information that you want. So when I was talking about the focus group, I said it's easy that you can be able to get so many people within one setting, as opposed to interviews where you'll be able to have to run interviews for individuals. So just think about it like if you run interviews, you'll do between 5 to 12 interviews, and all this can be done within one focus group. So that's the advantage, that people may offer info they wouldn't in a group, because they are feeling they're okay now to talk to the interviewer on one-to-one. And the the person who is interviewing gets also the advantage of getting to observe nonverbal communication, behavior cues, and you can be able to know, sometimes people will tell you yes and they mean no, and for you to be able to be very sure about that, then you check on the nonverbal behavior. The third advantage is that it allows for follow-through questions, that you can ask a question, you get a response, but you feel that that response is not adequate, then you can do a follow-through or a follow-up question. The disadvantage is that results from multiple interviews may contradict each other, and that creates a nightmare because now you have to find where is the area of convergence. Then the second disadvantage is if not done well, then it can easily get off topic. There are some people that you would interview and they can run with the show, take over. If you're not careful to stick to the topic, then they'll run you off topic. Spend a long time, and when you look back, you're not seeing much of what you needed to cover. This is a risk that is very common in unstructured interviews because you go around everywhere to be able to pick what you want, and by doing that, very strong interviewees will get you off topic very easily. Then there is the disadvantage of the potential to reduce scope and sample for data collection, because the concern is when you're doing an interview, especially an unstructured interview, then you need to be very keen. Otherwise, you might run an interview for a long time, and at the end of it, you look back and you're seeing there isn't much I have collected regarding the area that I needed to collect data in. Then the other tool is using surveys, and in needs assessment, we use a specific survey. It's called the dual response survey, and with the dual response survey, then it gives perspectives, two different perspectives on the current situation as is and the desired performance. So when you're issuing or giving the survey, then it's filled according to the current and the desired level of performance. The advantage is that it allows the capture of perspectives of multiple groups on a variety of issues, that you can do surveys to very wide population that captures multiple groups, and you can also be able to run survey on not only one area but several areas. So that is the variety of issues. In the long run, as you're doing your analysis, you can pick what speaks particularly to the need that you are assessing. Then the other advantage is that dual response allows simultaneous capture of the current and the desired level of performance. So you're able to analyze the perspective on where things are now and also where they would love to see things. So you're getting both a current and the desired performance level within the same question that you asked. Then it gives multiple ways to view, analyze, and report on findings. That as this perspective from different groups, from different people on different issues, then in the same light, it also gives you different ways that you can be able to analyze and also report on findings. The disadvantage of surveys, and especially so the dual response survey, is that records perceptions of those completing the survey might not be realistic. So when you get, you're running a survey, those that are completing the survey for you, you have to be very keen to ensure that we are realistic, we are not subjective. Like when you ask someone, what is the situation of household income? Is it adequate or is it inadequate? Now, adequacy or inadequacy is dependent on the person who is completing the survey. So sometimes you might not get a realistic view of what you'd want to pick. More so the reason why, as you're designing your tools, then you have to ensure that you design questions that will pick or collect the exact information that you want to collect. Then there's so much of surveys that is going on and or has gone on over time, and people get burnout because of extensive use of these surveys. So you'll go out and request people to complete a survey for you, and chances are quite a bigger chunk would not take it serious, would not want to participate. So that apathy is also a concern. Then in the surveys, we don't have opportunity for follow-through questions. Now, those are the techniques and the tools that we use in needs assessment. But for you to be able now to bring in the practicability of the needs assessment, then you also need to understand either your organization or your program. And for us to be able to understand organizations or programs, then it's important to do a SWOT analysis. So the basis, the reason or the purpose of the SWOT analysis is to identify, organize, and prioritize the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats that influence your program in terms of planning, in terms of design, in terms of implementation. So when you do a SWOT analysis of your program or your organization, then you'll know where to place the need assessment recommendation. So when you do a needs assessment and you want to implement as an organization, then I would recommend you do that by first understanding where is my organization in terms of understanding this need and how will it be in terms of implementing. The competency and the effectiveness of implementation will depend more on the organization understanding. So for the SWOT analysis, let me just run to the next slide a bit for you to be able to get a grasp of what I'm saying. For the SWOT analysis, we present this in 4 quadrants. And just like the name SWOT, we assess the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats to the organization. When we look at the strengths and the weaknesses, these are more of internal factors. This is what is within the organization. For this engineering company example of a SWOT, you can see that they are looking at their strength, like I'll pick number 2, well-trained management. To them, that is a strength. The weakness, high labor turnover of unskilled staff. So all this is internal matters, what is within the organization. And the external bit is what has the opportunities and the threats. That we have new technologies available to provide, to improve on control production. That is an opportunity that is out there that the organization can be able to tap into. Then the threats is increasing protectionism in some destination countries, that you're able to do your products, but getting the products out to the market, there are governments out there that are protecting their own, and it becomes very difficult for you to access market. So you look at opportunity and threats as external factors, and then strengths and weaknesses as internal factors. So in the long run, the reason for understanding the SWOT is that you build on your strength, you seize the opportunities that are available, you find a way to turn the weaknesses into strength and also to avoid the threats. So let me go back so that we can be able to look at the advantages and the disadvantages of SWOT when you're doing the needs assessment. So SWOT factors are prioritized in relation to other rather than listing them. So we are not listing the strengths, the weaknesses, and threats. There's a tool we call the SWOT analysis matrix, where you look at your strength and then you can be able to score that strength, whether it is more internal or lying towards external issues, or you can look at it on whether it is negative or positive. So you're able to prioritize those factors, and it's not a matter of just listing. In the other tools, you're just listing that this is the strength, this is the weakness, this is the level of need, but SWOT gives you a better understanding of organization awareness. Then engages a group to define relationship among factors, that when you identify the factors, you are able now to know what is the relationship. Sometimes there are factors that interplay, and when you understand that interplay, then it becomes much easier for you to understand the better way to manipulate those factors. Then for the disadvantages, assigning value can be very challenging. This we've seen across board when we want to find criteria, we want to assign value. But from an expert perspective, it becomes much easier when you understand the organization. Then you can help them in assigning value to the SWOT factors. Then it requires more time to move from factors and then to the relationships and the recommendations. How do the factors interplay, and then what is the recommendation moving forward? So that is our SWOT analysis. I would like to end it from that when we do our needs assessment, we want to finalize by knowing where exactly are we taking this recommendation to. Do we understand this organization? Then the organization, does it have the capacity to effectively run the recommendation and the decisions that we are able to reach to at the end of our needs assessment report and analysis. So there we go. I hope I've been able to give you a quick run through just to understand and grasp the concepts and the tools and the techniques, and makes it easy for you to run the same for your organization. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Albanos. That was a very beautiful and loaded presentation. I must say that I learned a lot. Thank you for taking us through the benefits of the needs assessment, the three-phase model of needs assessment, how to identify the needs. Particularly for me, I like the fact that you took us through the details of the tools of the needs assessment, how it is done, the advantages, disadvantages. I found that very beautiful. So we have a few questions here from the participants, and I'm going to read them out. I have 5 for now, so I'll read them all out, and then we'll take the second set of questions afterwards. The first one is, for small community projects, is there any need for needs assessment? Then the second question, are there ways that we can conduct needs assessment for small scale upcoming NGOs and CBOs that will be low cost and won't cost so much? Then the third question, is it okay to base your CBO or NGO solely on needs assessments done in another region that shares similar characteristics with your local community? Then the fourth question is, okay, this one is from Tioni. If after conducting your needs assessment, you find out that another organization has the same interest as you, but you feel that they lack sufficient capacity to carry out this project. What should you do in that case? That you've done a needs assessment, you want to solve it, but then someone else or another organization has also done the same needs assessment, they want to work on the same thing, but you feel that they don't have enough capacity to do it on their own. What should you do in that particular situation? Then the fifth question I have here is from Alexander from Ghana. And he says, can one use more than one tool to conduct needs assessment? So that's the first 5 we have now. I'll read the rest after. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks so much. Now, one, I would say most of the time we fail when we are running our CBOs and NGOs because we want to develop interventions without doing a needs assessment. Whatever I've taken you through, some might look at it like a very rigorous, tedious process, but it pays benefits. I would like to share just a small thought. I was involved in an evaluation process for a program in the northern part of Kenya, where a development organization went in and identified a need. They saw women who are walking very long distances to go and fetch water. So the women were going for like on average 30 to 40 kilometers to go and fetch water. And they can't carry more than one jerrycan of 20 liters. So they'll go for 20 or so kilometers to the water point, get the water, then come back with only 20 liters of water. So a practitioner came and looked at it and was like, I think this community needs water. Went ahead, did the fundraising, got money, came, sank boreholes, and ensured within that village, there was no borehole that was more than 5 kilometers apart. So felt I've made it easy for the women. They can now go get water very close and come back. But woe unto them because the women were not using the borehole. They left, walked the whole distance to the previous original water point. Why is it fetching water from the borehole? And as we were doing this assessment, then we realized that whatever that this person took in as a need was not the actual need for the community. So women were enjoying the camaraderie, they were enjoying the social gathering, togetherness, because this is what that village or that society was more patriarchal, and women did not really enjoy a moment to themselves that they can be able to just share with the other women and just have a good, nice time. They would walk all that distance so that they can be able to get that, I keep calling it like a social cushion, someone you can share what you're going through, you keep encouraging each other. And when we did our assessment, then we realized from the perspective of these women, water was not their priority. They used the distance of the borehole as an opportunity for them to develop that social camaraderie. Why am I sharing this? Because this is the risk of running an activity or running a program without assessing the needs. So you put in a lot of resources, but in the long run, those resources do not end up giving you the kind of results that you want. So I would say, with no uncertain terms, that needs assessment is very critical, whether it is a small CBO, whether it is a big NGO. It's very important that you conduct a needs assessment. it informs the kind of interventions that you'll be able to run. 2, when you're doing your needs assessment, I've given you tools, but it's not like you have to use all the tools and to be able to get the information that you want. You look at the suitability of the context within which you're running this program. Some would run just a survey, and they'll say, through this survey, we are able to capture this information. It has guided our program. And I keep saying, for you to run or to do something, you have to make a point. For a person who has made a point to do something and failed, that is a better person than one who has never tried. So don't get scared, don't get worried. Just go, try, even in a very small way, to find a way to analyze. Even if it's calling for a focus group, a representation of the community that you have, sit them down, talk to them about the needs of the community, let them prioritize those needs, and then you will be able to get a direction that you can take. 2, when you do a needs assessment, you get what we call stakeholders buy-in. They'll feel they've owned the project, not a project that is imposed on them. So you don't need to sit at the back of your desks in your office and try to think on behalf of the community on what their needs are. Just engage them, even if it is in a small way, and then you'll be able to run your interventions in a way that it will be much easier for you, and you will get the community support, you will get the community ownership. Well, I think I've addressed all your questions in those 2 responses. If there is one that I've not, let me know, then I can.
All right, okay, so there is one from Tioni. If after conducting your needs assessment, you find out that another organization also has the same problem, but you think that they're not as equipped as you are, what should you do in that case?
Now, when I talked about the needs assessment process, I said check on internal and external partners. So when you do that, then it becomes much easier that with the organization that you have around, then you can do a joint needs assessment. That makes it much easier. If it is not possible, then when you do a needs assessment, you will be able to understand what exactly you'd want to do with that community. And remember, in the tail end of my presentation, I brought in the SWOT analysis. So when you do the SWOT analysis after your needs assessment, then you realize that this organization has very good recommendation on the needs assessment, but does not have the expertise. So part of their project will be to get on board the right expertise, okay, to be able to run the program. 2, sometimes you might not have the resources for that, but you can also be able to run partnerships and collaborations. And if you do that, then it becomes much easier that you can take advantage of the strength of another organization within the locality to be able to implement, to be able to run a project the way you'd wish to do it. But for him, I would tell him that the purpose of the needs assessment will also bring out whether you lack the expertise or you don't have, you have the expertise or you don't have. And it will also give the expected performance, like what is the expected results. For us to be able to run this in a very effective way, then we'll need to hire a person who can support us in that. So as you're making your appeal, rationalization, you remember when you talked about the benefits, as you're making your appeal, then you can be able even to appeal to your donors and say, we've run a needs assessment and we've seen this is the direction that we would want to take, but we don't have the expertise. Then this also gives a reason for someone to bring in resources to help you get the expertise, either to get someone to come and train the organization or to hire someone who can be within the organization to conduct the project. So to me, that would be the advice that I'll give him. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that beautiful response. I also liked very much the story of the women that had to walk kilometers in order to get water, and their need was not water. I found that very nice. So we have two pending questions. One from Maria Elena. Apart from the SWOT analysis that helps us to organize the results that we get from interviews, are there other resources that can help us to organize the information we get from conducting a needs assessment? Then the second question is from Molly Grace. And she's asking that for a focus group discussion, we need structured questionnaires. Are there resources that can guide us on how to structure these questions and how can we get them?
So let me start first with the SWOT analysis. The SWOT analysis is one of the best ways that we can be able to bring in the recommendation and the results of our needs assessment. But that's just one tool. And that tool speaks more of individual awareness, organizational awareness, so that you can place the organization in a better position to implement the recommendations. But when we get the results and the recommendations from our needs assessment, then there is a very important tool called program or project logic, or you call it the logical framework. Now, that is what we bring in so that we can now run the recommended result into a logical framework. That this is the need, this is the level of need, this is the intervention, and these are the outcomes, these are the impact, these are the inputs, these are the outputs. So the log frame is more into the program management aspect of relaying the need through the continuum of understanding the resources, the results in the short term, the results in the long term. So that's one area that is very critical when you're able to present the results of your needs assessment and run it through into a program or into a project. Then the other one, in a very wide way, is understanding what we call the theory of change. That if we do this, what is the change that we expect? So you are able to bring out your theory of change within a specific need. I really wouldn't want to confuse you further because this is at a higher level, but you're able to put your logical framework and it will guide in your implementation. Then at a higher level is where we talk of our theory of change, we talk of outcome harvesting, very many other tools that we can be able to use as we guide our process of implementation towards the desired results that we want. But generally, tools are so many. The simpler ones, I think that's what is easy for us to start with in the meantime. On the matters of the focus group, on the matters of the interviews, that's a totally different stuff on its own. That you cannot run a focus group without first preparing your tools. If it's a structured, we call it a focus group protocol, then you have to develop your focus group protocol. run that through with your facilitator, or if you're the one who is running the facilitation, to be able to know these are the questions, this is how I'll be capturing the responses and such kind of thing. The same with interviews, how you run, do your questions, matters of closed-ended, open-ended questions. It's a whole a kind of engagement that might require some much more time. But what I know, probably through Jordan, you can be given examples of some structured interview questionnaires for you to be able to see what that includes. Mine was to give a general perspective on how to go about it. And once you have that interest, then getting deeper into exactly what is required, then that is another level that probably we can take you through, but in a later engagement.
This is Jordan. I just want to jump in there. I heard my name mentioned, but we will be posting some resources on the website, which will be going up by tomorrow morning. Additionally, I just wanted to mention we are going to be having a full session on SWOT analysis. A full session next week is going to be focusing on mission statement and theory of change. And then in week 7, we will also be diving deeper into overall monitoring and evaluation, which will include logic models. So a lot of these things that Alba brought up and that you're asking you want us to go more in depth on, we will be in the next 7 weeks.
Thank you so much, Jordan, for that update. And thank you very much, Mr. Albanos, for this very insightful session. We really appreciate it. We have learned a lot. I, for one, am very excited about this, and I look forward to applying this in my own project ideas. Please, would like to ask if you have any last words for us before we close the session.
So my last words, I think one is, I would want to tell you that helping your community is not rocket science. You should be guided by passion. And when you have that passion, it becomes very easy for you to maneuver and find a way around. 2, no one has tried and failed. Don't be scared to start. You will be able to get your projects and your organizations, and they'll be able to run successfully. What you need is just to put a lot of effort. You have the will, just put a lot of effort. There is a lot of resources online. Just go there, you'll be able to get the resources, and you'll be able to have your organizations up and running. What I would really advise you is that whatever you're doing in the community-based organization sector, do it together with your community. When you do it together with your community, they have a sense of ownership, and they'll also have, they'll have a feeling they would want to contribute towards the project. Every community has its own gatekeepers, and for you to be able to run your program very successfully, then you need to win over the gatekeepers, make them the champions to your initiatives, to your organization. And with that, then you will be doing it with the community. My parting shot is that do it with the community, don't do it for the community. Thank you.
Wow, that was really beautiful. Thank you so much, Mr. Albanos. And thank you to our attendees for making this an engaging session and for asking all the beautiful questions. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming to this webinar. It was nice having you around. And now we are going to end the session. The resources, remember, will be available on the WMI website, our Facebook page, and also the recording will be available on YouTube. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, everyone.